Hello, everyone, and welcome. My name is Catherine, and in today's webinar, we are going to be talking about supporting a loved one with ADHD. This webinar is fully funded by the Alberta government, and we have been very fortunate this year at Can Learn Society to receive a number of funding to create webinars and support groups to discuss some challenging topics, connect with different resources, and connect with one another and supporting our community and staying strong. A quick outline on today's presentation. First, I'll discuss a little bit about who we are and some of our resources at CanLearn. Next, we'll talk a little bit about ADHD. What is ADHD? What does it look like? We'll discuss strengths and then areas of support that you might have to provide as a caregiver or partner of someone with ADHD. And then we'll branch off and we'll talk about two different areas of support. Number one, supporting a child with ADHD, and number two, supporting a partner. At the very end of this webinar, there are some slides on different recommendations and resources for programs, books, websites that I highly recommend you also have a look at to further understand ADHD and understand how to support a loved one with ADHD. Who we are. Well, let's start with myself. My name's Catherine. I'm a newly registered psychologist at Can Learn Society, but I've actually been with Can Learn since 2016, so we're coming on 5 years now. I've worked in a number of different programs with children, teenagers, and now adults, and I'm super passionate about talking about mental health and things like ADHD. Can Learn has a number of different services that we provide. We have psychologists and pediatricians who are able to provide assessments for giftedness, learning disability, ADHD, anxiety. We also have services for counseling, ADHD coaching, and we have a number of different programs and groups for individuals and families. So things like social skills for kids between grade 4 to 6. We also provide behavioral consultations or even adult ADHD groups. So I highly recommend if there's anything you're interested in, check out our website or even give us a call and see if there's something that might fit for what you're looking for. One of the great things about CanLearn is we do receive a number of funding to help support families who might not be able to afford some of these services. We're always applying for new funding. We're always adapting and changing. So I recommend you keep an eye out on our website because there's always new things coming along. With our webinars, we've also included support groups. And we've noticed throughout the year that ADHD seems to be a really big topic. And so we've decided to focus our support groups on ADHD. So those happen bi-weekly, and I highly recommend they're free. They're a great way for you to connect and to talk about this topic even more. So I highly recommend that you have a look at that and sign up if interested. So let's get down to it. In order to support a loved one with ADHD, we have to build our knowledge, education, and awareness on what is ADHD. And unfortunately, there's a lot of false information, a lot of myths, and misconception when it comes to ADHD. So let's break it down. ADHD is a neurological disorder, and it impacts things like planning, focusing, organization, and self-regulation. Now, those different things consist of our executive functioning. Our executive functioning is our ability to solve problems, plan ahead, inhibit. So when you're really mad at a coworker and you want to scream and yell at them, you're able to inhibit that as well, and to kind of transition from task to task. So with ADHD, that is an area of difficulty. There's 3 different forms when it comes to ADHD. You can be primarily hyperactive impulsive. So this individual is typically feels like they always have to be on the go or on the move. You might see them fidgety, a little bit more impulsive, whether in things that they say or things that they do. Typically, when we think of ADHD, we think of that little 9-year-old boy running around the classroom, can't sit still. That is somewhat the hyperactive impulsive type. But it's important to know that there's different symptoms and everyone varies. The second one is primarily inattentive type. This one is formally known as ADD. So for those of you who are wondering, ADHD was called ADD beforehand, and it was primarily the inattentive type. So inattentive is individuals who struggle with focusing. Oftentimes, their mind might seem to wander. You won't necessarily always see them fidgeting, but you will notice that they might have a hard time staying focused on a conversation, forgetting small details here and there, missing important information. And finally, there's the primary combined type, which means both hyperactive and inattentive. Now, a lot of times when we think of ADHD, we're like, oh, they just can't focus. That's what ADHD is. And I'm here to tell you it's a little bit more complex than that. In fact, ADHD isn't they can't focus at all. Individuals with ADHD, once they have a strong motivation or something they're interested in, they can focus for large periods of time. ADHD is rather the challenge of regulating our focus in an even way. So what I mean by that is individuals with ADHD have an all or nothing approach. So either they are hyper-focused on whatever task they're on. So a little kid, it might be a Lego that they're really interested in or a video game, and they're on it for hours. They might even forget that they need to eat or that they need to use the bathroom. Or the complete opposite is they are struggling with completing tasks. So their mind just seems to be wandering and focusing on all these other things instead of sitting down and completing what they have to do. So it could look like I need to send this email or work on this assignment. So that's one really important thing to know when it comes to ADHD. It's not your inability to focus, but rather a challenge in regulating your focus in a nice, even way across different tasks. Now, another common misconception that I hear is, oh, well, we all have a little bit of ADHD. And I want to correct that a little bit. We all struggle with attention here and there. That is normal and that is natural. When it comes to symptoms of attention challenges, they're all on a spectrum. So it's normal for you to forget your wallet, misplace your phone every now and then, have a hard time focusing in a meeting or even writing a paper or an email for your boss. When it comes to diagnosing ADHD, that's when we look at how frequent are these symptoms popping up and what is the impact on everyday functioning. So that could be like having trouble with time management, running late for appointments where you're missing important appointments like with your doctor, running late for work meetings where that can impact your overall evaluation. Challenges with organization is another one as well. So misplacing important paperwork, losing your wallet often, forgetting important documents for work, or forgetting your homework at school. Having trouble problem solving sometimes because we're really fixated on one thing, or we're having a trouble focusing and it's hard for us to understand what areas needs to be addressed. Sometimes challenges even with self-motivation can be a big one. So remember, individuals with ADHD struggle with that executive functioning. So thinking ahead of time is really, really hard. You might notice your partner has a hard time, building a healthy regime, staying fit, because that's such a long-term goal for them and they don't see that immediate results. Impulse control and inhibition can be another one, and that can also impact friendships and relationships. So often saying things that you later regret or you don't mean, doing things that your friends might find a little bit strange or uncomfortable as well could be another one. And then trouble with emotional management, that's a huge one. So those emotions feel big, they feel strong, they are hard to manage, and again, those can impact everyday life. So when we're finding that these symptoms are occurring quite frequently, and they're really affecting things like schoolwork, your performance at work, your relationship, that's when that is a bit of some red flags that maybe this individual might have ADHD and would need a further assessment. So that's something important for you to know. So I want to highlight a couple of examples just so we can really understand what ADHD looks like. Dr. Russell Barkley is an amazing, amazing individual who has spent years researching, writing books, evaluating papers on ADHD. And he uses the example of myopia, which I found absolutely brilliant, and I want to summarize that for you. So individuals with ADHD is almost like they have a myopic brain. So myopia means you are nearsighted. So think of it in terms of glasses. It is, you can read easily, but when it comes to looking at a board or driving, it's challenging. That's the same with individuals with ADHD. Unless something is right in front of their face, they are not aware and they do not see it. So for example, if there is a deadline 2 months from now, they don't typically think about it until maybe 3 days before that deadline pops up. There is a bill that's due a month from now, out of sight, out of mind. So it's almost like they have this time blindness where they just have the inability to see anything that is distant or far ahead. That's why it's really hard for them to plan. That's why they often miss important deadlines and meetings because, again, unless it's right in front of them and it happens immediately, it's often forgotten. Another great example that I want to talk about is the receptionist example. So imagine we are CEOs of our own company. And because we're CEOs, we have lots of things going on, we're very busy. We have a receptionist helping guide us through. Now, typically, we would expect our receptionist to help us book in meetings. When someone has an appointment, they let them in. If someone comes in who doesn't have an appointment, they politely tell them to come back later or book an appointment. When it comes to ADHD, the receptionist is a little bit different. The receptionist A either lets everybody in at the same time. So you're supposed to be focusing on writing a report for work or completing your homework, and instead your mind is, oh, I need to pay my credit card, and oh, I forgot I have to book a doctor's appointment, and ooh, let me scroll on Instagram, and oh, that laundry, I've put that off for a couple of days. I should do that now. And you know what I've always wanted to learn? Coding. So our receptionist for individuals with ADHD lets either everyone in at once. So you can imagine how hard it is to focus on the meeting or appointment that you had when there's so many people around you talking about so many different things. Now, sometimes this receptionist goes the other way. So remember that all or nothing approach. So the receptionist lets nobody into your meetings, even the important ones who should be there. So you end up starting a task, you're so focused on it, you don't realize that it's been 8 hours, you haven't eaten, you haven't moved, you haven't even used the bathroom, and you needed to. So the receptionist doesn't work typical like other individuals' brain. For individuals with ADHD, that receptionist either lets everyone in or no one at all. And you can imagine how frustrating that must be for those individuals. So now that we've talked a little bit about ADHD, we've kind of put our brain in that mindset. Let's discuss some strengths about our loved ones who have ADHD. They can be spontaneous and they can have the most creative ideas. They make things fun and they make you laugh and they can think on their feet. Those individuals often enjoy challenges and even problem solving. Sometimes they can think of the most creative ways to solve problems. They're eager to learn. So something new is super exciting for them. And when they're motivated, they can definitely get things done. I want you to spend a couple of seconds thinking about your loved one right now. What do you love about them? What makes them unique or special? Or what, just brings a smile to your face when you think about it? The reason why I want us to do this exercise is I understand how frustrating some of these things can be. And a lot of times there's a lot of negative light when it comes to ADHD. But these individuals have some amazing strengths. And we need to think about that, and we need to remind ourselves of that. Because in a world where they don't quite fit in and everyone's telling them about all the things that they're doing wrong, that can be super frustrating for them and super exhausting for you to want to help them but not quite know how and feel burnt out. So remember, your loved one isn't just a label of ADHD. They are an individual with so much passion, so much talent, so much creativity, and they are there for a purpose, and they are there in your life, and they bring joy to your life. And it's important to remember that joy as we are going through the process and through these frustrations as well. Now, it's also important for us to be honest. As a loved one, there are some frustrations when it comes to really trying to support your loved one with ADHD. And some of these are the ones that I thought on the top of my head, but I'm sure there's other ones that you can personally think of as well. So number one, feeling like you're constantly repeating instructions, repeating yourself. As a partner, it might feel like you're always nagging. And although you don't want to be someone who's nagging, you feel like even though you say it once, it doesn't get done. So you're forced to repeat it over and over again. It can be also frustrating to often have to clean messes that aren't yours, whether it's a child or an adult. These individuals oftentimes might purposely want to clean up and get distracted or forget. It also is frustrating, having them miss important appointments, deadline, and as an adult, it can be really frustrating when those bills don't get paid on time, parking tickets, whatever it is, and then you have to end up paying extra for it. Leaving things last minute, whether it's packing for a vacation or mom, I have a report due and I need all these wonderful things by tomorrow. Can you help me, please? Feeling rushed, no matter how much you try to plan ahead, every kind of thing feels always last minute. Remember when we talked about that time blindness? Or even having tasks half completed. So they genuinely want to help, they start it off, and then they end up forgetting something. This can be seen in children and adults. And then the stress of you always feeling like you need to be on top of things. That can feel like quite a lot. That if you drop the ball for just one day, things are going to be chaotic and everything's going to self-destruct. The reason why I'm bringing these up is because I think honesty is so important. I don't like sugarcoating things. And there are some frustrating things when it comes to trying to help manage someone with ADHD. It can be extremely frustrating when this isn't something that you find difficult, and yet it is super hard for your child or your partner. Let's take a moment to just be real and feel that frustration. What are some things that you struggle with? What are some things that you might even find overwhelming or annoying? Evaluate and see, because once we understand what are some things that might bother us or we might find frustrating, this is going to help us understand what next steps we want to take. So when it comes to supporting an individual with ADHD, there are 4 different roles that we can take. Number 1 is the acceptor and listener. So this is an individual who just listens and accepts. It's that really calm and caring voice, that warm hug. This role isn't there to solve anything. It's just there to bring empathy and compassion. So when your loved one says, I try really hard and I just keep forgetting, you're there to listen and say, I hear you, that must be really hard. When your loved one misplaced or forgot an important item, I really, really loved that toy, or man, I can't believe I lost my credit card again. This is so stressful. You're just there to listen and to validate their feelings. Number 2, the support team member. So this is the team member who's here to support, who's here to help, and who's here to problem solve. So, hey, I have this big project. I'm super overwhelmed, Mom or Dad. I don't know what to do. All right, let's sit down and figure it out together. Or hey, I've been having some challenges at work. It seems like my mind's been really, really busy. Let's talk about it. What has been working and what hasn't? Notice there's a difference between one and two, and give the space and time for both. Your loved one doesn't always need you there to solve their problems. Sometimes they just need you there to listen, to love, and to accept. They're aware about their struggles already. They don't need someone reminding them and pushing that down. Oh, you lost your wallet again. Huh, I told you you should have done that. Or, oh, well, if you would have just listened to me and put that pager on, we wouldn't be in this situation. They're already aware of that. It's already happened. We just need someone to be empathetic and to listen. And sometimes we do need that support. That individual does need someone to help them problem solve and to figure out the next steps to take. But realize there's a time and place for both. The third one is an advocate. As a parent and as a partner. You're going to hear a lot of false things about ADHD. You're going to hear some side comments, maybe even about your child or your loved partner. And it's important for you to be an advocate when you can. Being an advocate can be as simple as saying, well, you know what? Not everyone's brain works the same way. Or yeah, this is something that we're working on, but I love that they keep trying and keep pushing. Or, hey, I'm not sure if you know, but my son or daughter has ADHD, and this is a common thing that many individuals with ADHD struggle with. And there's probably someone in your life as well with ADHD that you might not know. And last one, the benefactor. So this is an individual who really helps their child or partner support them financially, whether that's bringing them to treatment or counseling or an assessment. Not everyone can always complete this role at all times, and that's also okay. But realizing that your support and your role as a loved one is going to change, and there's a time and place for each one of those. This is off of the Adhd magazine, and I provided a link to the article at the bottom if you wanted to read further into it. But it's great to understand where your role lies when it comes to supporting someone with ADHD. So let's focus in on supporting my child. When it comes to supporting your child, the first thing I want you to look at and evaluate is yourself. How do you think about ADHD? How do you think about your child specifically? How's your patient? What kind of thoughts are popping into your head? Some of these situations can be super frustrating. We're not here to bring shame or guilt. We're just here to bring awareness. So do you notice yourself saying like, they should know this by now. They're 12 years old. I've repeated it 100 times. I don't know why they can't get it. This should be easy. They should just try harder. They're not focusing in. And it's natural and normal for all these thoughts to pop into our head, but we need to catch them before they plant themselves and they grow, because they can put a lot of negative light towards how we view our child. Think of it this way. If your child needed glasses and someone around them said, ugh, well, that child should just try harder. What do you mean they need glasses? They should just try harder. They're just being lazy. They just don't really want to look at the board. Well, that comment would bring fume and anger to you, wouldn't it? What do you mean try harder? They need glasses. They physically can't see. That has nothing to do with how hard they're trying. It's the same with individuals with ADHD. Just because we do not see a physical disability doesn't mean it's not there. These individuals are struggling. They struggle with executive functioning and with their attention. And yes, they are trying their very best, but they just can't quite do it. Just like someone without glasses might be squinting and trying, but they just can't see the board. So set a realistic expectation when it comes to your child. Realize that they might be 2 years behind from where they actually are. Realize that they have ADHD, and that is going to hinder and impact a lot of things. And realize that this takes time, doesn't happen overnight, and as frustrating as it may be, you are teaching them amazing strategies and skills for their future, for when they are in high school and when they are an adult. There are many adults now just realizing that they have ADHD because this topic wasn't talked about or understood. And they're just now realizing how to implement strategies, which makes it so much harder when you have 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70 plus years of a habit and a way of not knowing how to cope with something, right? At this age, you will have to be their executive functioning. You will be their time management. You will be their organization. You are planting the seed for them learning those strategies so it's not so hard when they're older and later on. Dr. Russell Barkley released a book called The 12 Principles for Raising a Child with ADHD. I highly recommend you go ahead and buy this because there's some amazing information in there. One of the things that really stuck with me in this book is, as a parent, you are a shepherd, not an engineer, which means we cannot design and build our children. We cannot design and change who they are. We are not engineers for our children. We are never going to make the ADHD go away or disappear. And with that might come a little bit of grieving with you, right? Maybe this isn't what you expected for your child or for your family. Maybe it's a lot more work than you thought it would be. And it's okay for you to take that moment and to grieve that process and to grieve that things are different. But once you're done grieving, you need to take a step back and realize, what is your role? Your role is a shepherd. You cannot change your child or take away the ADHD, but what you can do is shepherd and help them. What does a shepherd do for a sheep? A shepherd provides shelter, provides proper nutrition, helps protect them. It gives them a safe environment. And just like you're going to provide a safe place for them to grow up. When they're dealing with bullies or when they're dealing with adults who don't understand, you're going to be the advocate, the one who protects them. You're going to make sure that they're there with other healthy sheep so that they can learn amazing social skills. You're going to provide that safe place for them. A shepherd cannot change their sheep to a dog, but it can help guide and protect that they are the most healthiest sheep out there. And that's something that's important for you to know when it comes to you and your child, is that you are that shepherd, you are not an engineer. So, some keys for success. This is again from Dr. Russell Barkley's book, The 12 Principles for Raising a Child with ADHD. Number one, identify their strength and realize that that might not be academic. Whew, that's a hard one to process, isn't it? We focus so much on academics, on reading, writing, and math, and that might not be your child's strength. They might be amazing at working with their hands. Maybe they want to end up being going to cosmetology school. Maybe they want to be a mechanic. Maybe they want to be a singer or a comedian or a cook or a chef. Your child has some amazing strength, and it's important to identify that. And once you identify that, you want to promote development. So are they really into sport and dancing and karate? Is that what we want to focus on? So is that what we want to promote? Do we want to give them environments, extracurriculars where they can work on that? We want to look at resources as well. So what do they need to help kind of not only I promote that strength, but also help with those areas of support? So do they need a tutor? Do they need someone to work with them? Do they need to learn different strategies? Are they struggling with their emotions and they need to speak to a counselor? So when you help identify an individual's strength, you know what areas you want to develop, and you're also looking at what resources they need support in as well. There are many famous celebrities who have been diagnosed with ADHD that you might not even realize it, like Adam Levine or Justin Timberlake. And these individuals, they didn't end up becoming great doctors or lawyers. They thrived and succeeded in their field because that's where their strengths were and that's where they received that support from their loved ones and from their family. And a key crucial thing for success, is as a parent, be a safety net for your child. When things go wrong, when, a teacher calls you in and talks about the things that they're struggling with, be an area of safety for them. Be their biggest advocate because not everyone's going to see your child or understand your child or even ADHD. Advocate for them. If their school is not a right fit, keep seeking and finding what is. And when we look at success for ADHD, it's not always that straightforward line that we see. It's not always they go to school and they get A pluses. With ADHD, it's different, and that's okay as well. If they're succeeding academically, wonderful, but make sure to also identify other areas of strength to help build that fire in them and that place that they might feel safe to continue growing and developing. So here's a couple of examples. Number one, teach your style step by step. You might not realize that common sense isn't so common for them. So if they struggle with organization, teach them. This is our, drop zone bin. This is where you put your backpack and your lunch and when you come in, and this is where you take it when you go out. This is how you put a paper in a binder. You got to hole punch it and put it here because they might not know these things. And it's important to break things down. Remember, children with ADHD have that time blindness. So if all of a sudden, they have a report that's due 2 weeks from now, they're really not going to focus on it. So making sure that things are broken down to small increments and that they get immediate reward after. So a reward doesn't have to be anything crazy. It could be something like just a positive comment. You get to pick dinner tonight. You get to pick our favorite movie. Use visuals. We learn best when we are learning with our senses. So when it comes to individuals, with ADHD, they often struggle with memory and they need those visuals for what they've learned. So in the morning, have a checklist for them with pictures. And again, don't overcrowd it. Keep it small, simple. Brush your teeth, get dressed, eat breakfast, grab your stuff and go. And as your child gets older, teach them how to make a planner. Use stickers if you want even. So again, we want to make things easy, fun, colorful. So grab a bunch of fun stickers. Oh, every time we have math, let's put a math sticker because that's when this is due and that's when we're breaking it down. Use those visuals to help build routine. Routine is so important for individuals with ADHD. They don't like it, but they need it. So I've put a couple of apps here for routine. Really is a really great one for your kids who are a little bit older, I would say. So maybe 8 to 12ish years old, but it's one where they kind of create it as a fun game to get ready in the morning and to build that routine, and you can add your own little activities that you want them to do. Timo is one for younger kids, so if you have kids, I would say maybe 6 or younger, it's a free one as well that helps build routine. Again, the getting dressed, getting ready, and you can even have something as simple as like a kids timer app. They're going to need reminders and they're going to need time for transition. So again, this is going to be a lot of repetition from you, but they're going to need that reminders. You are their executive functioning. So make sure to give them the time for transition and to just give them reminders and even use your visuals if you can. So get one of those big timers where they can see the colors counting down for them to know, oh, we're going to transition to a different activity. We know exercise helps with attention, helps with mood, so incorporate exercise. Stretches in the morning. Smiley Mind is a great app that does those fun activities, or even Go Noodle. So incorporate those exercises in there. And again, lots of positive reinforcements. These kids already hear every day the things that they're not doing right. So make sure to highlight the things that they are doing well. And the things that they're struggling with, be open and communicate. If you are feeling frustrated and impatient one day, be open with that. Mom's not having the best day. Mom needs some time for herself. I'm going to come back in 5 minutes. And take that break. We're not perfect. Oh, hey, you know what? I'm really frustrated that we're dealing with this today. And I want to help you out, but I need some time. Or you know what? I've noticed this is really hard for you. How can we work together to make it work? Don't be scared to be open and communicate with your child. The good and the difficult as well. If you are a parent who struggles because your child is having a lot of emotional outbursts, they're being defiant and explosive, I highly recommend the book Explosive Child by Dr. Ross Green. Dr. Green has this quote that has really stuck with me, and that is, kids do well when they can. So children genuinely want to do well. They want to succeed. They want to show us all the things they can do. They want you to be proud and they want to learn. But when they don't have the skills, that can be really hard and frustrating. So when you're telling your child to complete their homework and they're bursting out in tears and crying because they've had a huge day at school and they just have nothing left for them to complete, it's not that they're being difficult or trying to hurt you on purpose or making this frustrating. It's that they don't have the skill. When you're telling your child to brush their teeth and they're on the floor screaming, it's not having to do with brushing their teeth or not. It's they have done so much throughout the day and they have so much emotional load and they don't know how to take it out that's where it's coming to. Children do well when they can. So Dr. Green talks about these 3 plans, right? So there's 3 different things we can do when we're put in this. Number 1 is plan A, where, all right, you're not doing it, I'm going to do it for you. Parent decides. Now, sometimes this can be a good thing. Like if your child is about to cross the street and you see a car, you bring them right back, you're keeping them safe. This is great for emergencies and quick thinking. But sometimes we treat non-emergencies like emergency plan and mom or dad take over. That causes more frustration for both you and your child, and it causes more outbursts, and it causes this non-ending cycle every day. Plan number C is, all right, I guess we won't do it now. You don't want to brush your teeth? Fine, let's not do it. And this is great for those really minimal things, such as, what outfit are we picking? Fine, we don't have to decide now. What food we want in our lunch bag, or what food we want to eat for dinner. These are not high emergency areas, so we can let them go. And then there's plan B, which is allowing both parent and child to decide. And this is when you're both collaborating and talking together. Oftentimes, we skip plan B and we want to go straight to plan A over and over again. And we realize that we are just living in this high stress environment all the time. So I really recommend for you to go into this book because it talks so much about plan B, how to guide that conversation between you and your child so you both can problem solve together, and so that we can work our way to dealing with those everyday situations and not having those big outbursts. And it is such a great book. There's so much detail in it, but I highly recommend you have a look at it. They also have an audiobook version as well if needed. So let's shift gears and talk a little bit about supporting a partner with ADHD. When it comes to supporting a partner, there's a couple of things that might get in the way, and these are important things for you to notice. So number 1 is over-helping. So you realize your partner is struggling with everything. You realize this is not an area of strength. So you try to kind of do as much as you can for them. So you pack their lunches, you are cleaning after them, you're putting their dishes away, you're tidying up, you're reminding them of their bills, you're making the bed, you're booking their appointments. And although some of these things are helpful, doing too much can actually be unhelpful. Number 1, it creates burnout for you because this is not something sustainable for the next 20 plus years. And number 2, it creates an unhealthy dependency. So your partner ends up realizing that things still get done, and they end up just relying on you instead of figuring out strategies that work for them. Number 2 is learned helplessness. So your partner realizes that every time they do something, that they fail, and maybe you comment on that or you talk about it. And this kind of creates this negative taste in their mouth where they just learn, well, I just, no matter what I do, I can't get it right. And that can be very dangerous as well, because that means that they're going to be feeling helpless what's the point of even trying a new strategy because I just can't get it. I'm this awful person to be around. And the last one is parent traps. At times, we can become a parent to our partner. We can say things like, how could you have missed that again? How could you have forgotten your wallet? I can't believe you did that again. And it feels like this person is trying to control you or blaming you. And again, nobody likes to be told what to do or to be told all the things that they're bad at. So they might kind of come back, well, you're not the boss of me, and go the complete opposite way, right? So you're constantly telling them, well, you should be doing this, clean up for themselves. So they almost want to rebel and do the complete opposite. These are all things that can impact a relationship. These are all things that we can do without realizing it, especially the overhelping one. And this is from an article in chat, which I've also linked if you want to learn more and talk about more into it. But I want you to realize the things that you've been doing, and if you've noticed they've been helpful, or if you've been noticing any of these patterns in your partner. So when it comes to supporting your partner, let's start with the basics. Number one, build understanding and awareness. When you understand ADHD, you really view your partner in a different light. It's not about, oh, they're lazy. It's so annoying how forgetful they are. So frustrating, but realizing this isn't something that they can control. And yeah, it is frustrating for you, but imagine how frustrating it must be for them. You learn to empathize with them, and empathy is such an important thing to have in a relationship. And be patient with them. Things aren't going to always be as organized or as clean as maybe you would like, but there's a middle ground that we can find that takes some flexibility from you and them. And again, that's all part of setting realistic expectations. There are subtle ways of giving reminders instead of always nagging. So having visuals is super important, and putting things in a visual place. So if it's your partner's turn to do the dishes and you realize that sometimes they forget something on the stove or something kind of on the table, just bring it into their visual proximity. You're not doing the dishes, you're just moving whatever item from the stove next to the sink for them to see. Small things, making them visual. If there is an important meeting or appointment, put it on the fridge, make it visual. It doesn't always have to be you saying it out loud. Communication is so important. And this is important in any relationships. But talking about with your partner their struggles and their areas that they need support. So, I've been learning more about ADHD. I can see how much this has impacted your life, and I would love to help support you. What areas do you need support in? We're not playing the parent role. We're not trying to do everything at once and overhelp. We want to know where they need it. And if they don't mention something and there's something you're noticing, bring it to their attention. I think that's great. I also noticed that you really struggle with this. And I want to make sure that we work together towards this. And also make boundaries. So when you're having that communication conversation, explain to them what areas that maybe have been overwhelming or frustrating with you to deal with as well. So for example, if your partner, forgets food outside, and for you, food is a sensitive thing. Maybe the smell bothers you. Maybe it's something that you easily get grossed out with. Be honest with that. I realize there's so many things that that you're handling and dealing with, and I want to help you as best as I can. There's also something I realize that's really hard for me, and that's when food is left outside. This is just something that I struggle with, and I know you really try your best, but this is something I would like us to focus on when it comes to our house. So again, pick one thing that you want to focus on that's tough for you. So you're telling them that you're working on it together, and you're also explaining where your limits are because you are human. You're not picking every little bit and thing, but you're talking about what's important for you. So, hey, I know you don't like it when I move your stuff around. I respect that. I also struggle when there's things kind of hanging around the kitchen and we get guests coming because I feel like it's a little chaotic. What can we do to make it work together? And lastly, make sure you take time to self-care for yourself. You're doing a lot. There are some moments that are going to be frustrating. It's okay to take that break and to take that step aside and to care for yourself. So, some things that you can do. So, what supporting can look like. It could look like being a body double for when they're working on school or completing a task for work. So, just having someone next to them working, doing something else, but having another body there can help them focus. It could be driving them to important appointments if that's something that they would like support in. Or filling up prescriptions if they're on ADHD medication. That could be something where they might need support. It could be placing items in sights and making your house ADHD friendly, putting things in sight for them because, again, out of sight, out of mind. Checking in on them. Hey, how's work been? And you don't have to relate everything to ADHD. You can just, hey, how's work been? Has there been any struggles lately? Making your home ADHD friendly. So if your partner struggles with putting clothes away, getting hooks instead of hangers. Hooks are way easier. They're immediate versus getting it, putting in a hanger, placing it properly. Or even having things like drawers, right? So maybe hangers in the closet is hard, but at least putting things in the drawer, they're in their place, even if they're not folded, they're there. Having items in your fridge or your pantry visible, again, out of sight, out of mind, just kind of making sure you're using clear containers. Having a drop-off center, so hey, like this is where you put our keys, or this is where you can put your wallet, and making that an easy, accessible way. And also letting the small stuff go. Again, things aren't always going to be perfect. They might not always be to your liking. And that's when that communication, that give and take is so important. And that's when there's some small things you're going to have to let go. And yeah, it might not be fun. It might be a little disorganized for a bit. But remember, you're not their parent, you're their partner. And continuing communicating when things start piling up or when they see that things are getting like they need a little bit more support or they're getting a little bit disorganized. Like, hey, I've noticed, you've been having a hard time lately. Is there something going on? Is work feel like a really big stressor? How can I help with that load? And talk about where you also might need help as well. So it's a give and take. Some of you may be at the stage where I think my partner has ADHD, now what? Where do we go from here? Well, it's important to kind of, first of all, have that open conversation with them. Hey, you noticed, you often struggle with this or this, or, this isn't the first time I've noticed that this has been hard for you. Or, hey, I've read this article. I've just listened to this webinar. I watched this video. You want to watch it with me? I think it's super interesting. What do you think about this? And if it resonates with them, start that open conversation. Has anyone else in your family has attention challenges? Have you ever noticed other things going on? From there, you might want to decide whether or not you want to go for an assessment or not. So, things to consider. How much are the symptoms disrupting work or relationships? So, do I need accommodations for work? And that's where maybe I need an assessment. Or maybe I need to speak to an ADHD coach or a counselor. Maybe I haven't been formally diagnosed and I don't need formal accommodations, but I realize it's impacting my relationship. What strategies do we want to work on? Pick one thing at a time. Don't overburn yourself by doing too much. Again, do I want an assessment? Maybe I'm thinking of medication and I'd like to seek an assessment first. Maybe I'm looking at going back to school and I need accommodations. And I always say you don't necessarily need a formal diagnosis to work on strategies. Assessments can be expensive, and I do understand that. But if you're noticing that these are symptoms you're struggling with, we can still work on strategies without a formal assessment. And if medication is something you're interested in, do you want to talk to your family doctor and have that conversation? Maybe they need your support in booking that appointment to get that pull started. Some things to think about, some conversations to have when it comes to talking about ADHD with your partner. This is my final slide for our presentation, where I want to wrap things up by talking about when it comes to ADHD, we look at 4 main factors to help support an individual. Number 1, educating them and loved ones around them. Number 2, building a healthy lifestyle. So managing your sleep, your nutrition, your exercise. Number 3, finding strategies that work for you. And number 4, sometimes medication is something that needs to be looked into. As a partner, as a parent, this can be overwhelming and there can be so many steps to look to at a time. But even you listening into this webinar and educating yourself is a step forward. Take the time to evaluate your family. Take the time to evaluate your struggles. You might self have ADHD and are trying to support a child with ADHD, and that can be quite hard as well. So make sure that as you're talking to your partner, as you're communicating with your child, you're also taking care of yourself. And through taking care of yourself, you're able to take care of your family. Once our foundation is built, our sleep, our nutrition, our exercise, once we've built that education, that's when we can talk about those strategies and look at all the different resources that we have. You are not alone on this journey. It can be super overwhelming. So take the time for yourself. Take the time to grieve if you need to grieve, to feel frustrated if you feel frustrated, to feel overwhelmed if you feel overwhelmed. But realize it's one step at a time. And we are building strategies to help our child in the future, to help our partner. And yes, there might be some days where the dishes aren't done or the garbage isn't taken out. And you know what? In the end, these are small problems. And we try again tomorrow. My last slides I'm going to leave with you to look over. We have different resources for websites, for groups, for programs, for books for you to look into. I mentioned a couple of my previous webinars, but CanLearn does have some amazing support for ADHD, and I highly recommend you have a look at that, whether through this slide, contacting our intake coordinator, or on our website. Thank you for having this wonderful conversation with me, for talking about such an important topic, and I hope we continue to educate ourselves to support one another. You take care and have yourself a great day.